Hello guys, today I'll talk about the equations of the lines, okay? So let's move into the first part of the equations of lines, okay? So for equation of lines, we can write it down as this way as y equals to mx plus c, okay? So here we can set y means y-intercept, x means x-intercept, okay? That is the basic understanding for this. And here, the m means the gradient. So last lesson, we already learned about gradient, right? We said gradient m can be written as changing y over changing x, right? It's just like you're climbing a mountain, right? Here is a mountain, and if the mountain's altitude is very high, that means changing y is very big, and if here the y is very slow or very small, here is very small. So delta y or delta x is very big. That means the mountain is very steep, right? Okay. And c means the intercept, okay? So you can just try to understand it here. When x equals to 0, you can set y equals to m times 0 plus c, right? And we know that every number times 0 equals to 0, right? So it just equals to c. So that means when x equals to 0 and y equals to c, so in the coordinate, we can set x equals to 0, y equals to c, that is 0, c, right? So we can set the line must pass through the point 0, c. The y-intercept is 0, c, okay? That is a gradient intercept form, okay? So how to find the equation from a graph? Okay, here is a step-by-step process right here. Okay, so first step is to find the y-intercept c, okay? And then you can find the gradient m using changing y over changing x. And we knew that changing y equals to y2 minus y1, right? And changing x equals to x2 minus x1, okay? So also you can say that it's y difference over x difference, right? Okay, so maybe you have to find 2 points and to use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, okay? So maybe for here, for example, is that if a line cuts the y-axis at -2, so you can say here the y-intercept is y equals to -2 or c equals to -2, okay? And it goes up 3 units for every 1 unit, right? Okay, so here is 1 unit, and here is for 3 units. Okay, so you can find the intercept right here. Maybe it's just for changing y over changing x, right? Okay, so changing y over changing x, it is 3 over 1 equals 3, right? Okay, that is a gradient right here. Okay, so you can set, just put into the equations y equals to mx plus c, right? So here we can set is y equals to gradient is 3, so 3x plus c, so c equals -2. So you can just write that as 3x minus 2, okay? That is the equation right here. And here, and we can also say you can find the gradient, you can find the equations just by a given gradient and 1 point. Okay, how to do that? Here is an example. Like we have an equation of the line with a gradient 3 and passes through 2, 10, right? Okay, so you can just put 2, 10 inside the lines. Okay, so that is y equals 3x plus c, right? And then you can just put 2, 10 inside of this, okay? That is 10 equals to 2 times 3 plus c, okay? That is the equation. And then you can set, you can using 10 minus 2 times 3, right? So here c equals to 10 minus 2 times 3, that is 10 minus 6 equals to 4, right? Okay, so we can say here, the final equation can be written as y equals to 3x plus 4, okay? That is a gradient right here, okay? And also if you want to using the equation given by 2 points, like here, 1, 4 and 3, 12, the method is first we can calculate the gradient. M gradient equals to the changing y over changing x, right? So here changing y is 12 minus 4 equals to 8. And changing x equals to 3 minus 1 equals to 8 over 2. That is 4, right? So we can set here the equation is y equals to 4x plus c, right? And our goal changes to how to find c. Okay, so you can set, maybe you can put 1, 4 into it. So that is for 4 equals to 4 times 1 plus c, right? So c here equals to 0. Okay, so finally we can set the equation as y equals to 4x plus 0. That is just y equals to 4x. Okay, that is the equation right here. And here we can just transfer into another form called general form. Okay, So here the general form here is 2ax plus by equals to c. Like here, this is the general form. And how to change it to, you can find here, example, as y equals to negative 2 over 3x plus 4. So first, if you want to change into this form, you can like times 3 on the both side. Then it can be switched into 3y equals to negative 2x plus, here's 12, right? And then you can move in negative 2x on the left. That is 2x plus 3y equals to 12, okay? That is a final equation right here, okay? That is a general form. And here is also some deliberate practice for you. Okay, so you can just try yourself. If you want to do just on yourself, you can just pause the video. But if you want to like follow with me, you can keep on going. Okay, so maybe for the first problem, as a line has a gradient 4 and passes through the point 0, -5, right? So you can say here c equals to -5, and gradient here equals to 4, right? So you can say the line is y equals to 4x minus 5, right? Okay, that is for first question. And for second question is that a line has a gradient -2 and passes through the point 3, 4, right? So we can say here, first gradient is -2, so it's y equals to -2x plus c, right? And we can put 3, 4 into it. That is 4 equals to -2 times 3 plus c, okay? That is it. And you can find the c value as c equals to 6 plus 4 equals to 10, okay? So here the value here is y equals to minus 2x plus 10, okay? And for the third problem, to find the gradient, first we can set gradient equals to changing y over changing x. So here the changing y is 10 minus 1, and changing x is 2 minus -1, right? That is 9 over 3 equals to 3. And you can find the intercept. Maybe here is y equals 3x plus c. So you can just put -1, 1 into it. That is 1 equals 3 times -1 plus c, okay? So c's value here is equals to 1 plus 3 equals to 4, okay? So because that's the gradient, so the intercept is 3x plus 4. That is the total equation. And for last equation, first we can just trying to write down as a normal form as y equals to mx plus c. So here we give 2 points, so we can just trying to using the changing y over changing x to find the gradient, right? So here the gradient is delta y over delta x equals to 1 minus 3 over 6 minus 2. The value here is -2 over 4. The value here is for -1/2, right? So we can just write it down maybe as y equals to -1/2 x plus c, okay? And then you can put 2, 3 into it, okay? And the value here is for 3 equals to -1/2 times 2 plus c. So c here equals to 4, okay? That is the equation right here. So you can set maybe here is for y equals to -1/2 x plus 4, and then you can times 2 on the both side, right? So here is 2y equals to -x plus 8. So just trying to rewrite it, okay? So it's 2y plus x minus 8 equals to 0, okay? This is the fourth question right here. Okay, so that's for today's our lesson. I hope you can just understanding how to write down the equations of lines. This is very important. Maybe right here, you don't need to understand exactly what is y equals mx plus c, but you have to understand it. Here, we have the gradient, we have the intercept, how to find it. First, using 2 points, or like if we're giving you the gradient, that is m, and then using the gradient and the exact point to find the intercept c, and then put them together is y equals to mx plus c. Okay, so that's for today's our lesson. So see you next day. Bye.